Welcome to the Golden State Media Concepts, America's Still Beautiful podcast, a weekly news podcast covering all the top positive and uplifting news stories. Are you tired of the same old news? Are you sick of the seemingly endless political spin and negativity? We cover stories that will inspire, uplift, and remind you of the good in the world. Tune into the Golden State Media Concepts, America's Still Beautiful podcast to get all the great and positive news stories of today.
Welcome to GSMC, America's Still Beautiful podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Alyssa Jo. Hello, everybody. How's it going today? I hope you're having a wonderful week. Happy Thursday, if you're listening to this on Thursday. We have almost made it to the weekend. I hope you get to sleep in this weekend and enjoy some relaxing time, because I hope that I get to do that as well. So happy Thursday, happy week. I hope you've been spreading lots of kindness and feeling good and positive. You already know I am back with more positive, feel-good stories to share with you. I am your happy news girl. There has been so many draining headlines over the last so many months. So I am so glad that I get to come here and talk to you just all about positive things that are going on in our world, because believe it or not, there are still so many positive things happening. So I'm going to stop rambling on about that, and I'm going to jump right in to these feel-good, positive stories to uplift your day. So the first one I want to share with you, you already know how much I love a good, positive pandemic story. I love to bring a positive spin to the chaos that we are living in right now, and there has been a really cool thing that happened. Okay, well, I think it's really cool. So another animal is being brought to life, basically. I shouldn't say that, but has been noticed more because of the pandemic. So basically, the very rare pink dolphins have been returning to Hong Kong because the coronavirus has halted the ferry traffic. And so now it's giving the scientists a closer look at these dolphins. So they're not just called rare pink dolphins. They are called the Indo-Pacific humpback dolphin, but they are literally pink. They're super cool. So they have been seen normally like in the dense waterways around the city, which is just super exciting. And so the lack of the ferry traffic, that's resulting, of course, from the coronavirus shutdowns, have now allowed these animals to make their dramatic reappearance, is what they're calling it. And this is in the Pearl River Delta, and it connects the busy Moscow with an even busier Hong Kong. So the sightings have increased by 30% since March from last year, when only 52 of the estimated 2,000 dolphins entered the waters around the cities. And so now it's allowed these scientists to have a closer look at these amazing aquatic animals. So they have been dropping microphones into the water, and this one scientist, her name is Lindsay Porter. She's a marine biologist at the University of St. Andrews, and her team have discovered the dolphins have adapted far more rapidly than they might have kind of expected to the dip in Delta traffic. And they explained that the local governments haven't yet made a very serious effort to protect the dolphins yet, largely relying on the marine parks where boat traffic is limited but not banned yet. So she has hopes that this speed of recovery of the population in just the brief, kind of reprieve of COVID-19 would mean that, more serious conservation strategy will now happen. So cities across the world have been noticing the presence of more wild animals, right? But this is just another exciting wild animal, I guess, reappearance. If you want to go check out these dolphins, they're so cool. I'll try to post up a picture on our social media pages. The Indo-Pacific humpback dolphin, or literally just search up the pink dolphin. I'm sure it's going to pop up. They are adorable. So there you go, a positive story about the pandemic. Now, I have a pretty cool story about a veteran who has been helping fellow vets transition into civilian life through video gaming. So, yeah, it's a pretty cool thing. So, he is a medically retired veteran of the U.S. Army, and now he's helping recreate, that brother and sisterhood people often find in the service through his YouTube channel that focuses on gaming and self-care. So his name is Christopher Bohem. He left the Army, and he learned from a friend that the staggering statistic that the 22 veterans die each day by suicide. So he said, being injured and having a past struggle with alcohol abuse, he really connected with the pain of these veterans. So he decided then that he really wanted to help others leaving the service to smoothly transition back into civilian life. So when he learned that the U.S. Army uses Twitch, if you've not known what Twitch is a live streaming platform for gamers, or just live streaming in general, pretty much. And the U.S. Army was using it for recruitment purposes. So he knew that he could do something similar to connect with veterans and prevent the social isolation and depression that exists in the veteran community. So he set up his own YouTube channel. It's called Bayonet X-Ray. So Bayonet X-Ray, and he plays video games live for 22 minutes at sunrise each morning, representing the 22 veterans that die by suicide each day. And while he games, he shares strategies for combating PTSD and depression. He gives daily motivational tips, tips on healthy eating and breathing. He also just provides general kind of just tips for those isolated veterans. And he says, my goal is to connect with veterans that can't access other services. This YouTube channel is my way of helping my brothers and sisters. And during the COVID-19 pandemic, it is especially important to stay connected and break up the day-to-day monotony. So there you have it. Isn't that pretty cool? Connecting veterans through YouTube. You gotta love social media. It always comes to the rescue. All right, so now this next story is actually about McDonald's and a pretty amazing thing that one of their portable restaurants has done. They gave away 10,000 free meals to the community of Lake Charles in Louisiana after the hurricane happened. So they wanted to help out and give out these free meals to the people in need in the community. So, I don't know, you maybe have heard of McRibs, but I don't know if you've heard of McRig. Well, McRig is like this portable, it's literally like the portable restaurant of McDonald's, which is pretty cool. So, the generous McDonald's franchise owner, he decided to give away the 10,000 free meals to the people in these communities. And the hurricane Laura is one of the most powerful hurricanes to hit Louisiana since 1856. So there's widespread flooding, down power lines, extensive damage to homes and businesses. Residents were left without power, running water, just other basic necessities. So, Rikesh Patel, he owns and operates 25 McDonald's locations in the area, and he really realized the storm's full impact that day that Laura made the landfill. So he wanted to take action. And I guess the pictures just do not do it justice. You may have seen this on your social media pages, but he just figured that hot meals would be hard to come by for those impacted by the hurricane. So he made a call to corporate headquarters, and the McRig is a ginormous self-sustaining portable kitchen, and it was then dispatched from a Kentucky location and arrived the following day. And him and his restaurant staff kept the extreme food truck running for 6 days. They served 10,000 free meals made of McDonald's cheeseburgers, fries, bottled water, all those good things. And McDonald's founder, his name is Ray Kroc, he believed that, he says, we must give back to the communities that we do business in. Thank you to our amazing crew and managers for making this belief come alive. So I just thought that was a pretty cool story. I've never heard of McRig before. I didn't know they had a portable McDonald's restaurant, but it is so cool that they were able to help out the community that was hit drastically by the hurricane. So, it is time for a little bit of a break, but don't go anywhere. I have so many more feel-good positive stories to share with you. Lots of feel-good ones, lots of scientific breakthroughs, positive things about the environment, animals. You already know all the favorite things that I like to share with you. So stay tuned. Don't go anywhere. I will be right back.
The GSMC Life and Happiness podcast takes you on a journey of exploration. We'll discuss tried and true methods alongside the latest trends of how to best live your life to its fullest and happiest. From psychology to meditation, science to self-help books, the GSMC Life and Happiness podcast will help you to discover what makes you happy and how you can live life being the best you possible. Download the GSMC Life and Happiness podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type GSMC in the search bar.
Welcome back to GSMC, America's Still Beautiful podcast. Okay, so I am sharing all feel-good, positive stories with you, like usual, and I have a pretty cool one about a billionaire. He reached his goal, and his goal was to give away his entire fortune, and it's pretty cool how he did this because he did it all through 38 years of secret donations. How cool is that? Okay, so he wanted to secretly give away his fortune, and he's now achieved this goal at the age of 89 years old. His name is Chuck Feeney, and he made his money in the duty-free shopping business, building a nest egg of $8 billion over the course of his life, which is crazy. So he's known for his frugality and humility. He does not own a car. Isn't that crazy? He rents a small apartment, he flies economy class, and he owns only one pair of shoes. Have you ever heard of a billionaire like that? Like, just blows my mind. So, the co-founder of the Duty Free Shoppers Group managed to keep his charitable activities hidden from the public for 15 years. And then his identity was revealed to the public in 1997 when he sold his shares in the company. So he continued to keep a pretty low profile up until 2005 when the opportunity came along to do some good with the publicity. So he decided to cooperate with a journalist. His name was Connor O'Clery. He was writing his biography, and the biography had an eye toward promoting giving while living to other healthy people. So in 2007, the former prime minister at the time, Bertie Ahern, launched the book at the Trinity College Dublin. So just this past week, his foundation, the Atlantic Philanthropies, finally ran out of money. So he said that he was very happy with completing this on his watch. He says he urged other super rich folks not to wait until after they have passed away to experience the joy of giving away their fortunes. And he did explain what motivated his generosity. He said that wealth brings responsibility. People must define themselves or feel responsibility to use some of their assets to improve the lives of their fellow humans, or else create intractable problems for future generations. So he's donated $3.7 billion to higher education institutes, including close to $1 billion to Cornell University alone. And that's where he actually studied for free under the GI Bill after serving in the Air Force during the Korean War. He also donated $870 million to various human rights groups, $1.9 billion to fund various projects in Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland. He helped found the University of Limerick. So it doesn't just stop there. In addition to the direct financial impact, these charitable actions actually inspired Bill Gates and Warren Buffett to establish the Giving Pledge for the world's richest people. So those who take the pledge commit to giving at least half of their fortune away to charity. And yeah, he just wanted to express his admiration for what his friend has accomplished in his life. And he says that my hero and Bill Gates' hero, he should be everybody's hero. So pretty cool information. I have to say, I've never heard of a billionaire living, one pair of shoes, renting a small apartment, just living in the bare minimum. I love to hear it. I think it's so, so cool. Now, this next story I want to share with you, it's such a sweet story. It's an amazing success story about a young girl. Her name is Anastasia Paganis, and she lost her vision at the age of 14 years old. Of course, it's tough for any teen to be growing up. Like a 14-year-old girl, you're going through so many different things, right? But dealing with a life-changing disability, of course, made things even more challenging for her. And she says, it took me about 8 months to kind of regroup myself. And then I got it in my head, okay, I'm blind. Now what am I going to do with my life? So she actually, she's a Long Island native, and she grew up in the water pretty much. So she'd taken up competitive freestyle swimming just a few months prior to going totally blind. So she was excelling at the sport, even with her limited vision. And I guess there was an abusive team atmosphere that prompted her to quit the competition. So losing her sight so close on the heels of giving up to this pastime, took a really emotional toll, of course, right? So after months of therapy, she was ready to get back in the water and start swimming again. But, she didn't want to just swim. She did want to compete. So now she faces another dilemma. Like, nobody wanted to train a blind girl, she said. And I ended up, after about 8 months, finding an amazing coach who was willing to train me and actually put on blackout goggles to try and figure out a way for me to swim. So by the age of 16, she was earning a reputation as a very fierce competitor. She took 2 gold medals at the World Para Swimming World Series in Australia. So with this newfound sense of accomplishment, a little bit of confidence in her, she actually she turned to social media because she realized that she wanted to be a role model. She wanted to share her story. She wanted to hopefully inspire, maybe other kids, other people to follow their dreams no matter what their disability is. So she says, I wanted to help people the way that I needed help. I started doing Instagram and social media and was getting a bunch of direct messages and replies saying, wow, you really helped me get through little things, or I was getting bullied in school and you helped me get through that, or you let me know how much I was worth. So cool. So she says when she was back in the water, it's her happy place, it's her element, and it's the place where she feels like she does not have a disability. And she says it's the only place where she feels completely free. She says, when I dive in the water, it's just me in the pool, and I feel such a connection with it. So she didn't know this yet, but just earlier this week, her happy place was about to get a whole lot happier thanks to some New York athletes, okay? And the New York Islander Puppies with Purpose program, that's founded in the conjunction with the nonprofit Guide Dog Foundation, and they were about to have its first graduate, which was an adorable Labrador Retriever, and his name was Radar. So what they did was team up this Golden Retriever Radar with Anastasia. So due to the pandemic, her and Radar began their initial training at her home. And then in August, they were ready to take on the world together, she says. She says, I'm so lucky to have Radar. He has given me my independence back and is my partner in crime. So that independence now has allowed her to take her place as a resident athlete at Colorado's Olympic Paralympic Training Center. She has a goal of competing in the Tokyo 2021 Games. She says, this was a huge and scary decision for me, but sometimes you need to take a leap of faith because if you don't try, you don't know. Always follow your dreams. So she has her dog as her co-pilot, and they're working towards those Tokyo 2021 games. Isn't that such an incredible story? I love it. I love it so much. Okay, well, it's time for a little bit of a break, but don't go anywhere, because when we get back, I actually have a study, some tips and tricks that came out that I thought could be helpful for some people. I'm sure you've heard of, like, the COVID COVID-19 pounds, where people, maybe through isolation, maybe put on some weight. So there's actually a study of things that you can do to help shed off those COVID-19 pounds. So I thought I would share them. Also, I have a really touching story about a lonely widower who finds a bunch of friends. Okay, you don't want to miss it. Stay tuned. I'll be right back.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
Welcome back to GSMC, America's Still Beautiful podcast. Okay, so we are on the last stretch of today's episode. I'm going to jam-pack as many stories as I can to uplift your day. So I did mention that this study came out of these health tips and tricks of how to shed those COVID-19 pounds that I feel like most of us have gained. If you weren't working out at home, you were doing what I was doing, which was snacking a lot and hanging out. So this is some of the things that they say are some slimming strategies for post-lockdown renewal. So, there's lots of reasons why diet and sleep and exercise patterns have obviously been interrupted during the lockdowns. So getting back into your routines can be really difficult, especially even than just starting them in the first place. We had so many months of staying at home that it's really hard to get into that routine. I think a lot of us fell out of that. So scientists started to add many common health problems that were linked, of course, with diet and lifestyle to the list of these COVID-19 factors. And they said that the time has never been better to make some changes and improve your eating habits and your physical activity. So they're saying always with light heart. We're calling it the COVID-19, 19 pounds. And here are some strategies. They're mental, dietary, physical, just to get that renewal and focus to help you tackle those post-lockdown pounds. So the first one is understand your limitations. This is a very foundational characteristic of any diet of lifestyle, right? Of course. So because in essence, we are all very different, right? Our willpower it's a chemical resource, really. And many studies have demonstrated, and exercising makes it more difficult to exercise it in the future. So always try to keep in mind how making one choice will affect the rest of the day. And don't set a trap for yourself to fall in when you come home from a tough day at work. Basically, don't leave the healthy eating until dinner, for example, right? You want to try to start your day off fresh and healthy. Number 2 is have a clear path to success. Having attainable goals is so crucial, which a lot of people look over sometimes. We always set these high, very high, unrealistic goals right away, and then we get discouraged. So they say that large challenges are not only difficult to achieve, but can bring you down and make it harder to reach simpler goals. So instead, just pick smaller targets to build that confidence when starting your weight loss journey, and say, I'm always going to have a serving of vegetables for dinner is a really great start. Number 3 is be your own best boss. The best boss or teacher you've ever had was able to both richly conjugate you on your successes and work out what went wrong and give a constructive way to push you towards the next level. So you being your own boss at the end of the day when it comes to eating right, sleeping enough, and exercising, you got to try to behave like the best boss you've ever had. When you do something wrong, and more importantly, when you do something right, you got to celebrate that success as often. It's just as important to stay positive and celebrate those successes and show yourself some compassion when you fall off track a little bit. Number 4 is be a source of positivity. An English study showed that the act of perceiving barriers to make healthy eating choices had a detrimental effect on participants' ability to eat healthy foods regularly. So they say focus instead on what you can do. I can cook more, I can use more local ingredients, I can help my kids eat more healthy foods, I can take up a sport. Simple things like that. Number 5 is the friction and fuel effect. So according to Alison Grubutsky, PhD, Director of Behavior Change and Strategies and Coaching at Weight Watchers, so she's saying that dietary and lifestyle habits become harder to follow when there is friction in your life and not enough fuel. So friction refers to anything that makes your choices more difficult. So when you or your loved one bring junk food into the house, or when you leave your gym clothes in the dirty laundry. And then she says, in contrast, fuel is anything that makes making the right choice easier. So such as setting your exercise clothes out in the morning, listening to healthy eating podcasts, preparing a smoothie the night before. Number 6 is cooking substitutes. Just basically, this one says it's a manner of common products that are used in cooking, especially in baking. They have replacements, and it can be very valuable when pursuing a healthy lifestyle habit. So, for baking, cooking oil like peanut or canola oil can be replaced with all kinds of smashed fruits and vegetables, avocado, canned pumpkin, mashed banana, applesauce, things like that. For dairy, you can cut the butter and replace it with things like yogurt, depending on what you're making. For pasta, if you have a spiralizer, you can do zucchini into noodles, lots of different things like that, or just cook lots of vegetables in your pasta. For flour, you can ground almonds or an ancient grain like spelt, and you can just kind of ground up to reduce those carbs and increase your fiber. Number 7 says, if you have time, eat most of your vegetables with breakfast. This way you don't have to do it later when you're tired and don't feel like peeling carrots or chopping cabbage. Get it done in the morning. Number 8 is adopt a time-restricted feeding schedule. So scientist Dr. Sachin Panda, based on his research, he says that restricted hours of feeding demonstrated that more time spent in fasted state increased your resistance. So I'm sure you've heard of intermittent fasting, that 14-10 or that 16-8 hour eating program. Try to do that. They're saying that those studies are very, very helpful. And then number 9, it's not always about the sweat, but the consistency. So gyms are full of fitness enthusiasts who, of course, love the sweat, but getting in a good workout is not always about busting your bum or on the elliptical machine, but it's actually about consistency. So a week filled with 5 1-hour low-intensity workouts or 5 30-minute medium-intensity workouts is more valuable than a week with 1 or 2 exhaustive knee-shaking workouts that make you feel like very weak and vulnerable. So they're saying that this strategy called Snackatives, it was developed by the University of Loughborough under a multi-million grant from the UK's National Health Service to create a public health campaign that focused on getting sedentary office workers moving around in a way that didn't necessarily involve a lengthy visit to the gym. So be consistent. You don't have to be shaking your knees every workout, but you just want to stay consistent as possible. So I thought I would share with those scientific studies about shedding off those pounds just in case, I feel like we're all in a little bit more of a position like that these days. So now this next story I want to share with you is such a touching story. It's about a lonely widower, and he put up a poster asking for friends. And he got flooded with messages from new pals just wanting to be his friend. So it's so cute. His name is Tony Williams, and he received so many emails, they actually crashed his inbox. He had hundreds of phone calls from new friends around the world. People from America, Germany, Holland, Australia, Egypt, India, Japan. They've all been inviting him on road trips to the US or for an afternoon drinking gin and tonics. Like, just so cute. So they offered Tony, he is a retired 75-year-old physicist. They've offered him lunches, phone calls for their kids to adopt him as a grandfather, like just the cutest things. He says that the love and compassion people have shown has actually brought tears to my eyes. People have sent me the most delightful emails. They've sent me pictures of their kids, their pets, told me about their aspirations, and telling me that they are thinking of me. He says, I got an email from a local teacher asking if children in her class could write me letters. I got in touch with her straight away and said it would be delightful. I would love that. People have been phoning from Canada and the States. One lady phoned up and said if I get on a plane sometime, she would pick me up and show me her area of Florida. It's just been gorgeous. He says, when I started responding, they were coming in thick and fast. I would say about 4 or 5 a minute. So he says, I can't even respond now as my email account seems to have crashed. A red message came up saying that there was some sort of error and it needs to be reset. So isn't that such a touching story? Like, his wife just passed away recently, so he put up this poster, and it's just been an overwhelming amount of feedback and people just wanting to be his friends. So him and his wife, they were unable to have children, and he said that often he was sitting at home waiting for the phone to ring. He says, but it never does. And he says that he has been cursed by loneliness. So he has no family nearby. And so, yeah, he put up in his local newspaper looking for a friend to chat to, and then put up this poster, and just all these messages started flooding in. So he says now after spending a summer of waiting for the phone to ring, he's just been swamped by his responses, and he's enjoying chatting on the phone to strangers who are now friends from all around the world, and plans to meet up with his new pals once COVID restrictions are allowing to. He says, I've just been completely overwhelmed, and I'm so thankful for it all. Just thought it was the sweetest story ever. Okay, well, that is all I have for you today. I hope you enjoyed today's episode of GSMC, America's Still Beautiful podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. Thank you so much for being here. I've got new episodes out every single Monday and Thursday, so do not forget to hit that subscribe button to like and follow us on social media, and leave a 5-star review. You already know how much it helps and how much I love reading the reviews. So thank you, thank you, thank you. I cannot wait to share more positive, feel-good stories with you next time. Stay positive, stay happy, and I hope you have an amazing day. Thank you.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts, America's Still Beautiful podcast, part of the GSMC Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcasts on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type in GSMC to find all of our shows. From the GSMC Podcast Network, from social media news to marketing news, and even weird news, the GSMC Podcast Network has you covered. You can also follow us on Twitter and Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's episode of the Golden State Media Concepts, America's Still Beautiful podcast.